Dear students, today's topic of discussion is a poem named Marshlands. Marshland means wetlands. This poem is written by Emily Pauline Johnson. She was a Canadian poet. Marshlands by Emily Pauline Johnson is a 14-line poem that is divided into 7 couplets. Children, a couplet is a literary device that is made up of 2 rhyming lines of poem. These lines fall in succession or one after another. This poem is a sonnet. Any poem that consists of 14 lines is called sonnet, and sonnets follow a strict rhyme scheme. Children, rhyme scheme is a pattern of words at the end of each line in the poem. In this poem, the poet provides visual images to showcase the worth of marshlands, to show the importance of marshlands to those who can appreciate its value. Now, let's discuss the poem in detail. A thin, wet sky that yellows at the rim. Rim means the edge of the sky where it meets land. The first line describes the sky that looks down over top of the marshes, top of the wetlands. It is thin and wet, as if at any moment it could break open and storm. The edge of the sky at the horizon is yellow since the sun has just set and the twilight has set in. Children, horizon is a place where sky and land seems to meet and meets with sun-lost lip the marsh brim. Children, brim means the top edge of the marsh, the top edge of the wetland where it seems to meet the sky. After reading this line, we come to know that the sun has almost vanished, disappeared from the sky, and it appears as if a storm is about to drench the land. Drench means making something wet. In the second line, the marsh is described as having lip and brim. Children, here the yellow light of the sun and the blue line from the sky, they look like lip, the edge of the sky and the edge of the marshland. They meet and it looks like that marshland has lips. The pools low lying, dank with moss and mold. Dank means unpleasantly wet and cold. The next couplet describes the pools that make up most of the floor of the marsh. Because of these pools, the marshlands, they are wet. They are low in ground and filled with moss and mold. The pools in the marshlands, they are filled with moss and mold. These areas are not pleasant, at least to those who do not naturally reside within the area, who do not naturally inhabit or live within this area. Though these pools, they look unpleasantly wet, but they are very fertile. Glint through their mildews like large cups of gold. Children, glint means shining, and mildews is a kind of fungus. The pools of water in the marsh, in the wetlands, are like cups of gold. They look like cups of gold. As they shine, they glimmer in the setting sunlight. Means the waters themselves still glint, still shine through the layers of moss that is grown in the pools. Among the wild rice in the still lagoon, lagoon means lack of sea water that is partly separated from the sea by rocks or sand. In this couplet, the speaker moves on to describe the wild rice that is growing on the land. Here, the speaker refers to marsh as containing a still lagoon. The water is stagnant, is giving bad smell. But as previously stated, that does not mean there isn't life. The water is still, it's not moving, it's giving foul smell, it is stagnant, but still there is life. In monotone, the lizard strills his tune. Monotone means sound that continues on the same note without getting any louder or softer. The lizard is said to be shrill, that makes loud, unpleasant sound in his tune. Means lizards they continue make same sounds in the marshes. The wild goose homing seeks a sheltering. Next, the speaker describes another animal, the wild goose. It is homing. Homing means returning home after a long journey, where rushes grow and oozing lichens cling. In this line, the poet says, the wild goose knows that somewhere in amongst the rushes or long grass and the oozing lichens, there is somewhere it can rest. Children, through these lines, the poet wants to give a clear picture of how the land is important to both plants and non human animals. It plays host to a great variety of species. About them, we will read in the next lines. Late cranes with heavy wing and lazy flight sail up the silence with the nearing night. In these lines, the poet says, the night is coming more strongly, and it is under the silence of the night, silence of the sky, that the late cranes are flying lazily. They are sailing up, they are flying from the marshlands to fly in the peace of the evening. There is no rush in their action. They are not in hurry. They are not flying fast. They move without any particular pressing need. They are not at all in hurry. And like a spirit, swathed in some soft veil. Children, swathe means to cover something, and veil means a kind of cover. Here, the poet describes how the night is taking over the land, how the darkness is covering the land. It is described as being like a spirit that moves slowly. The darkness comes over the land, steals twilight and its shadows over the swale. Swale means marshes, the wetlands. Here the poet says, the darkness comes over the land and takes away the remaining bits of twilight, takes away the light completely, and now it is dark, it is night. Now there are shadows over the marshes, over the marshlands, or the low valleys in mostly flat marshes. Hushed lie the sedges, and the vapors creep. Here, the poet describes the night scene in the marshes, night scene in the wetlands, where all the sedges means tall grass like plants, and other creatures, they all are silent, thick, grey, and humid, while the marshes sleep. Here, the poet says the air is thick, grey, and humid, pressing down on the wetlands as they sleep. Here at night, The air at the marshes is very strong and rest of the environment all around is silent. When morning comes, the great variety of life, all plants and all the creatures that live in marshes will become active once more. Children, in the final stanza, the poet describes the silence of the wetlands. The air around is thick, grey, and humid. It almost shows its heavy presence on the marshes as the creatures of the wetlands sleep. Children, in this poem, the poet has used strong images in marshlands to show natural environment in its own beauty, untouched and not polluted by the human hands. The marshlands are presented here as a perfect ecosystem for all species to cohabit peacefully. Silence and stillness characterize the marshlands, occasionally disturbed by the passing of different birds like wild goose and different animals like lizards. Children, that's all for today. I hope you have understood the poem well.